We're live. Well, let's put it this way: if you want to do a Google search now and have a look and see if you still stay on, if you lose the
fall
link,
off the cliff of doom.
just come back on.
Well, look, see, and there we are. There he went.
Yeah. We've lost them.
He's been Googled.
Lost them. Do people still say cyberspace?
He's been Google whacked. That's not it at all.
Is cyberspace a 90s term?
Yeah, it is now. Do you know what a Google whack is?
I have no idea.
A Google whack.
I hope it's not what I think it might be.
No, don't worry.
Okay.
It's entirely clean. You'll be pleased to know it's entirely. There's no way. This is me. This is we don't introduce a Google whack is where you put something in the search engine of Google, and it comes back with one entry. I think it is. It only comes back with one thing, and that's called a Google whack. It might be when it comes back with nothing, but yeah, and it comes back with actually. I'm not sure if it's one thing or I can't remember if it's one thing or nothing, but anyway, it sounds good. And he's been Google whacked. He went off to Google something and disappeared. Bye, John.
Well, I've just sent them a link, a message saying use the same link. So while he's doing what he's doing, and before we talk about tonight's subject, how did your gig go? Talk to us about that.
Gig was it was good, really nice. We basically my bass player Dave, he goes to a pub with a guy who's going to Everest Base Camp.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so to do it, he's going to do some. It's part of some charity thing that he's doing, sort of helping Tibet.
We found him.
Oh, you're back. You've been Google whacked.
No, it was just before Andrew called. I was just checking a couple of facts just to get my facts right, and I just ran out of time. But we can just bring it as the show progresses.
That's okay.
Hey, but before we get into the show, Carl, Simon's just going to give us a bit of a update on a gig that he did last night. So we'll let him finish that, and then then I'll get you to introduce tonight's subject, if that's cool.
We'll link seamlessly into tonight's subject.
Awesome.
So Dave and I, this guy was doing this charity thing to raise money for him to go to Everest Base Camp.
Wow.
So anybody, here we are. Today's trivia quiz. Okay, so Everest is named after. Do you know who Everest is named after?
An Englishman.
Yeah, an Englishman called Sir George. It's weird. He's called Sir George Everest. That's how you pronounce his name, right? He's the sort of he was the sort of mapping guy in India. Yeah, but he wasn't called Sir George Everest. He's called Sir George Everest. So technically, he should be Mount Everest, not Mount Everest.
Okay.
Because Everest sounds like a high peak or a high mountain.
It does, yeah.
Name.
Yeah.
It's just brilliant. Yeah, he's a sort of.
I'll give you some trivia, Simon. So there was a guy from New Zealand called Sir Edmund Hillary who scaled it first human.
We know who Sir Edmund Hillary is, Carl. Everyone knows who Sir Edmund Hillary is. And Sherpa Tenzing, yes, up Mount Everest, first man to do it. Thank you very much. Yes. Ooh, never heard of him.
I was just being a bit cheeky, adding the Kiwi
thing. Simon, New Zealanders don't have much really to talk about other than the All Blacks and Sir Edmund Hillary.
Well, indeed, and Lord of the Rings.
And Sir Peter Jackson,
the great triumvirate of
Roger Bannister. Was Roger Bannister an Englishman or a New Zealander?
He's an Englishman.
I say he was English, isn't he?
Peter Snell,
Kiwi.
What did he do?
He wasn't the first to go under 4. Bannister was.
Yeah,
but Peter
he was
Snell
around that time, wasn't he? He's one of those guys, those runners, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think Peter Snell won the 1,500 and the 5,000 meters medal at Tokyo.
Oh wow! Yeah.
See, Let's quick put him in. Now we've got 4. Now what we're going to do?
Hey, just a quick thing, Simon. I met this girl, and she's from England. She's from Dover.
Yeah.
What is that an interesting place?
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting. The reason I'm going is because it is interesting, Dover, because it's one of the Cinque ports, the ancient Cinque ports. It's in Kent, and it basically it's the gateway to Europe. It is the shipping gateway to Europe. Which the reason I'm laughing is because we've had many of them. We've had a Brexit minister, EU exit minister, who's called Dominic Raab, and he said, "Oh, I hadn't realised that Dover and Calais was so close to each other."
Well, I zoomed in on the map, and Dover is right next to Europe.
Well, yeah, all the traffic, all the import and export traffic, pretty much. Not all of it, but most of it that goes to France and Europe goes via Dover. It's a massive.
Dover. Is that a song or a poem?
Well, no, it's a song. Dame Vera Lynn. It's a wartime song. But it is. They are literally white. They're chalk cliffs.
Wow.
They literally, these big, massive. It's a coastline of white chalk cliffs. Hence the White Cliffs of Dover. Or the Eric Johnson? Eric Johnson. He's done a song called that, didn't he? Yeah, not the same thing at all, but it's a famous wartime song by a woman called Dame Vera Lynn. She's still alive. Okay. She's about 105, I think.
Wow.
Still going.
And so the gig was good.
The gig was really nice. Yeah, because we're a duo, and we use backing tracks and stuff. So because we have a drummer, and the beauty of it is that we discovered that you can go and set up, and it's quite a large room. It's quite a sort of restaurant place, so we're in the corner. That's fine, and we played quite a lot when people arrived, and we played a bit at the end, and in the middle they did food auctions, quizzes, all sorts of stuff. The beauty of it is because we don't play, we can control our volume quite a lot. We're not able to play very loud, because we're not set to the volume of a drummer. But people can come in, they can still have a chat and kind of things that we can be playing along. And what you find is you think nobody notices or anything like that. And then people come up and go, "That was really cool." And lots of people come up and go, "That's really cool. Oh, I really like what you do." And there's this thing about if you're not too loud and you're not too in people's faces, actually loads of people really like that. And I think we got at least one more gig out of last night. People go, "Oh, can you come and play so and so?" Because we're not in people's faces. We're not. And I've spent a lot of years in a band where being in your face was the thing, and suddenly you discover this little duo thing that you don't have to be in people's faces, and people really like it. If they can come in, have a chat, and you're not playing too loud, they can still talk, they can still hear themselves think,
See, Carl, what Simon's saying, there's a future for you and I, man. There's a future for you and I to gig, brother.
Little boogie box, there's some blues standards. You'd be away, man, at the corner. Fantastic, man.
We'll be on fire.
I'll tell you what.
There's a time and place for everything.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. I bet you could do that quite comfortably. You really could.
Once the gig gets going and everyone starts to get liquored up, then you can potentially turn it up.
Yeah, we turned it up a bit in the second set and put some.
What requests do you get? Like Smoke on the Water, or
we can do smoke. We can do Smoke on the Water. We've got a backing track for Smoke on the Water. We could go like that. We practiced it. Dave and I have practiced. It only comes up and does Smoke on the Water. We go, yep. 1, 2, 3, 4. We go straight into it. Yes. We go. I can play the riff properly and all that.
One of the funniest things that I think that. Well, I remember when my cousin was playing and they played all originals. And I think their friends were having them on, but they do this a lot all over the world. Someone in the crowd always yells out, "Freebird!"
No, actually, well, they used to shout out "Whipping Post."
Oh, really?
Remember that being the gag? The gag is people used to shout out, obviously the Allman Brothers Band songs. There's a famous song called "Whipping Post." In fact, Yeah, people used to do it all the time at gigs, and certainly in the 70s. In fact, so much that the great Frank Zappa made his band. He learnt it with his band. And if somebody shouted out one of the Frank Zappa concerts, they would do it. Which I think is pretty cool.
Throw something at him.
No. Yeah, Frank. Frank. Frank Zappa, the mothers. Off they go. 1, 2, 3, 4, into whipping post. Marvelous. Look at that.
Wow. Yeah, that Allman Brothers whipping post. That famous album. Where they're all sitting
live
back there.
Live for the Fillmore West.
It's phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
Well, what that whipping post does is forget about the guitar playing. It really shows off Greg Allman singing.
Oh, yeah. Mate, underrated.
And a great keyboard player as well. Yeah. They're a great band. I love because I grew up in it. I love that kind of long sort of bluesy jam things. That's pretty cool in my books. Doesn't seem to fit.
Album that I don't own, but it's often been overlooked. Which the famous albums of the Fillmore West and all that sort of stuff. There's that first one with Jesus Christ on the back, and it's got that song "Cross the Bear." It's quite good.
Yep. Yeah.
Can I ask you guys a question?
What's that?
Hey, Arvin. So you've got the Grateful Dead and their fans, and you've got the Allman Brothers and their fans. Would there have been much of a crossover between those guys and those bands and their fans?
Nah.
No, see, because the Allman Brothers. See, the Dead are from California, and the Allman Brothers are from Georgia. The same.
Totally different.
Yeah, it's a totally different thing. You know it's better than me because you lived it, but
I was watching some Bob Weir videos just recently, and he's an average guitar player. I never took to the Dead, I never took to the Dead.
It's funny, isn't it? That I heard somebody saying the other day.
I'm not interested in eating mushrooms, wearing colourful clothes, giving everything away to charity, then begging for food. Because they have Dead fans, They have a really loyal fan base.
Well, Ed Ward's in the chat says that they often played together. So,
I'm sure they did after they got going, but they do. They come from different places, and certainly, to start with, I
think Jerry Garcia had a very what's it called, a appreciation of the blues.
Yeah.
Not so much the rest of the band.
Well, Garcia was a bluegrasser too, so he was proficient on the banjo. So he got into rock and roll because he was a searcher of authenticity. That's what got him into music in the first place. They would hang out and they would check out these bluegrass banjo players, and then got into rock and roll. But your thing about Bob Weir. There's a Netflix documentary, and Bob Weir is remarkable in the sense that he used to play all these weird jazz chords, which worked well with the guitar playing of Jerry Garcia because he was the rocker, clearly. So Bob would just do all these weird, chords.
Weird chords. Just chords, man. What are they doing? Stop that now.
Anyway, so we better get on tonight's topic. And tonight's topic,
we've digressed.
Well, as usual, no surprise. And look, I want to give you guys some feedback from last week's show because I was a passenger. Thank you very much because I went and listened to a couple of albums during the week. And I'm going to be again a passenger on today's show because you guys are going to talk to us about Mike Bloomfield. So off you go.
Yeah, well, I think Mike Bloomfield once again this is part of the American Treasure series. Obviously, we talked about Roy Buchanan last week, which we all learned something. So I think that if you don't mind, to continue with the series, we'll talk about Mike Bloomfield today. And later date, talk about Johnny Winter Dwayne Orman and Billy Gibbons.
Well, I can certainly contribute something to the Johnny Winter and Dwayne Orman show. Certainly. Yeah.
And Billy Gibbons and all these 5 people, they all, in some strange way, all connect. But Mike Bloomfield special in the sense that he came from a very privileged background, but he had a super authentic appreciation and respect from fellow musicians of not only the blues but of music in general. So I did a little bit of research. I knew that he came from a wealthy family, but through his mother's side is where he got his talent. She was musical. So Chicago's a big place, and like most cities, you got 2 sides of the tracks. Most cities have an east side and west side. With Chicago, you have a north side and a south side. So he came from the north side, and as we know, the south side of Chicago was where all the blues happened. So guys like him and Paul Butterfield, young teenagers, would sneak into these clubs, and it became apparent from very early on that Mike Bloomfield had freakish talent. So it's a bit like, I guess, Mick and Keith meeting. The Mike Bloomfield meeting Paul Butterfield was world changing. So yeah. So Mike Bloomfield, I think we'll talk about it a little bit more during the show, but used the blues as a foundation and took that blues to new heights with rock and obviously that late 60s Woodstock period and onwards. That's about that's what I know about him.
Yeah, we kind of, when we did with some of our Eric Clapton stuff, Carl, I made a comparison that he was like the American Eric Clapton.
Yeah.
In terms of, a white guy playing the blues, and in terms of introduction of equipment and things like that, we made a kind of comparison, didn't we, Andrew, that he was a kind of American version, and what he did in the Paul Butterfield Blues Band kind of mirrored what Eric did with John Mayall and with the Beano album. Very influential, very a lot of people admired that as an album, as a way back into the blues and things, and obviously played with lots of people. And I think there's also something about his Jewishness as well, because he was Jewish. That I saw a quote somewhere, I can't remember what it was, but something about that he understood the blues is about pain and loss, and he understood about that, and the black guys externalized it, but the Jewish internalized it. So he had the same, he felt the same thing.
Peter Green had that same thought too.
Yeah. Well, there's an interesting strand, isn't it? Yeah, Jewish guys in rock, Bob Dylan, obviously,
and the black guys in Chicago latched on to that, and that Jewishness gave him some authenticity with those black cats too, because from what I understood when I was doing some research on that Eric Clapton show, it was pretty difficult for a white cat to jump on stage and play with these ordinary black guys that were residents in blues clubs, let alone guys that had a big following. So
it was pretty segregated then. In the we're talking about starting in '59, so the early '60s. He's playing with Muddy Waters and he's playing with Howlin' Wolf and these guys in these Chicago clubs.
Those guys would have had a bit more of an in because Chess Records, a lot of these record label owners were Jewish, so they probably these black guys probably thought, we better be nice to him because our boss is Leonard.
So how old was he when he was playing with Muddy Waters? He 17, 18?
Yeah, he's born.
He started out interviewing him first.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's YouTube videos, I've seen them, where he interviews all these blues guys.
What sort of documentary style thing?
Yeah. And he busks on the streets. He really wanted to be an authentic blues man. He basically wanted to turn his back on his dad's business and basically delve straight into the cauldron of blues and the melting pot of that Mississippi sound, really.
So this was in what was this, the late 50s or early 60s
Early
when
60s.
he's doing?
Yeah,
Okay,
from
so
59 is the first time he played in the Blues Club, but so
is that right?
The 60s. Yeah.
Wow.
He played.
So
Yeah.
Chicago was still a working town then. It's hasn't turned into what it is now. You know, you still had industry going. It was still vibrant.
Yeah.
Oh, it was part of part of the Rust Belt.
Okay.
Yeah, and you have
basically, I think that was part of the Industrial Revolution. Still.
Yeah, that's right. And that migration from the deep south, up the Mississippi, basically to Chicago, for work and
And you brought up a good point. So that first album that they did, the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, was like the Beano album, but the second album, East West, was almost like Cream.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes, there is that parallel, isn't there?
We're having there's the work song and that song East West, and all of a sudden there was a couple of songs and it's a good point about the Grateful Dead. Before they were getting into that Eastern sound, which the Californians are interested in.
So who was running the Paul Butterfield Blues Band then in those first two albums? Was it Mike or was it Paul?
Oh, I think they were both. I think it was Keith and Mick sort of a thing. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Of course, Paul Butterfield also had Elvin Bishop in them as well, who's a no mean guitar player either. So, and I think Elvin Bishop and Paul Butterfield were playing together before Mike Bloomfield joined them. So I guess Mike Bloomfield is already joining something that's a working unit kind of thing. Brings his tremendous style and difference to it, but.
Elvin Bishop was a very good guitar player.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people don't know this. It's an amazing album, South's Greatest Hits in the early 70s. It's a fantastic compilation if you wanted to learn about Southern music. And he just did that once. Yeah, it's called South's Greatest Hits. It's every song's good. It's got Allman Brothers, Charlie Daniels. And so Elvin Bishop's breakout was Fooled Around and Fell in Love.
Love it.
With an amazing guitar solo.
Yeah, it's he's an amazing guitar player and kind of been around a long time. Played with lots of people. So I think
he's a Jewish guy from Oklahoma, another Jew.
Yeah, see, Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's weird. Well, I mean, these kind of connections are there, aren't they? In the foreground, but not necessarily noticed very much.
And everybody hungry for the same thing, which was to play in an authentic blues band.
Yeah, that's right, authenticity.
And a lot of people don't know this, which made them sound amazing, was their rhythm section was Howling Wolf's rhythm section. So they actually had a bona fide black rhythm section that were amazing.
I love if you know what the third Paul Butterfield band is after Mike Bloomfield had left. It's called The Resurrection of Pig Boy Crabshaw. I have no idea what that is. He took his name from Bishop's nickname. There you are. He was nicknamed Pig Boy Crabshaw.
These guys were good. We'll talk about it a bit later on.
Yeah.
But Mike Bloomfield did some amazing projects after Paul Butterfield disbanded. And Paul Butterfield did some amazing projects with horn sections, and he had a host of great guitar players. And these guys are always really trying to reach another height somewhere else,
Yeah.
Was Paul in Electric Church, or was that, was it
Mike.
just Mike?
Okay.
Mike.
Yeah. So there was a connection. There's some good connections with Mike Bloomfield in the '60s. Obviously, Paul Butterfield, we'll talk about it a bit later on. But Al Cooper, Super Sessions. I think
Love it.
Electric Church. I think there was Buddy Miles. Is that right?
Yeah.
Jimi Hendrix's drummer.
Yes.
So he was in some what they call prog rock bands. Really searching for. It's almost like drug addicts searching for the next best high. They were searching for that next best, a scale or an unheard of note. A note yet to be discovered, or a song. So yeah. When these guys are on, they're on, eh?
Yeah, and kind of searching to expand it. I mean, there's that, that you could see across that in the late 60s and early 70s. People were looking to expand music, weren't they, into new areas, use different instrument combinations. People having horn sections, not in a, but not necessarily in, Chicago and all of that stuff. Starting
really exciting because
yeah.
I mean, the Cream would have come over and they recorded Disraeli Gears in New York, and then you had Paul Butterfield and Mike Bloomfield with East West, which was a giant of an album.
Yes.
And then you had
Hey,
Jimi Hendrix at live at what's it called? That famous Monterey.
Yep, Monterey. Yeah,
Monterey, which was a landmark concert for not only Jimi Hendrix but a lot of other people. So it was just very exciting for everybody all crisscrossing together.
Yeah, and I think that as we've said before on these things that the music scene wasn't that big, so that they would go and play with they'd go to the West Coast and play with the Grateful Dead, play with whoever's around, so the paths of all these people were interlinked and crossed frequently, and obviously as they interlink and cross, so that new projects and new things come out of them, and they play with other people, and as you just described, and new music entails, doesn't it? From and I think there's that kind of restlessness in there, which says, well, I made a couple of albums, now I'm going to move on and do something else, kind of thing. I mean, look, you could see it completely mirrored in Eric Clapton. Had that kind of restless. Well, I did the Yardbirds for a bit, and I did John Mayall for a bit, but actually, I'm going to do Cream, and that's a couple of years, and then I'm going to do something else.
Blind Faith for what? No more than 6 or 9
Blind Faith
months?
for 10 minutes, yes, and stuff like that.
A Hyde Park concert and half an American tour.
So can I just ask you guys something? So it's interesting that you say that the first album that Paul did mirrored the Beano album. The second album was a mirror of Cream. So Mike's record with Electric Church would be more of a Grateful Dead.
Do you mean Electric Flag?
Electric Flag, sorry, yeah, Electric Flag.
I think Electric Church was a Black Sabbath song, was it? Or?
Yeah, sorry, yeah. All these electric.
No, that's Electric Funeral. Sorry.
Yeah,
not
Electric
to be
Funeral.
Confused with, okay. Yeah, we can insert that.
So was that a mirror of the what is it? The psychedelic.
Yeah.
The jams, the long jams, kind of.
I would say more Santana.
Oh wow.
Yeah, kind of jazzier elements, isn't it? Jazzier elements.
Funk and jazz, funk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, amazing. Kind of doing. But yes, that restless spirit to move on, to find something new to play, some difference to play and different people to play with and stuff like that. But
and Mike Bloomfield was a bit like a Willie Dixon. He was a producer and arranger. They were very intelligent guys. Session work and producing albums and Super Session, that album, and there's another guy that came on the scene but didn't blow up quite the same, was Shuggy Otis.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So yeah. So Mike Bloomfield. So I guess we'll go back a little bit. So he did those 2 albums with Paul Butterfield, but his his relationship with Bob Dylan was world changing, was monumental.
Sure.
The Newport Folk Festival, 1965.
Sure.
Yeah, his
Yeah,
playing on the Highway 61 Revisited album and the Telecaster and Maggie's Farm solo.
So how did he hook up with Bob, or did Bob hook up with Mike?
I'm not sure.
I can basically, obviously, Dylan had come across the Paul Butterfield Blues Band with Mike Bloomfield, and at the 65 Newport Folk Festival, he'd played the previous couple of years of us doing an acoustic thing, purely acoustic set. Obviously, that's sort of the Newport Folk Festival main thing, and he made a single called "Please Crawl Out." Can you please crawl out your window? Which is an electric single, in '63, I want to say, so early, and it never got released because it was electric. But in '65, he did "Bringing It All Back Home." Now, the one thing about "Bringing It All Back Home" is one side of it's acoustic, those long acoustic songs, the other side is electric, and has Bruce Langhorne on it. But so basically, he'd sort of gone electric, and then he wanted to play electric. So he had this gig at the Newport Folk Festival in '65, and he decided, kind of there and then, on the day, he'd seen Paul Butterfield rehearsing, playing, and he thought, oh, well, look, maybe I'll use it. So he said to Mike Bloomfield, will you come and play with me? Him and Al Cooper as well. Yep. Will you come and play with me? I want to do some electric stuff. So they practiced in the afternoon for this kind of evening gig, which he did. They only did 3 songs. Now it is famous as the start of the audience booing Dylan for going electric thing that went on through '65 and '66. Culminating in the famous Manchester Free Trade Hall or Albert Hall thing, where somebody shouts out Judas. I presume you all know that stuff.
Traitor.
Judas. So, he shouts out Judas, and Dylan says, I don't know. He says, I don't believe you. You a liar. And he turns around to the band and says, play fucking loud. and they, if you haven't heard it, it's bloody amazing. And when it crashed into Like a Rolling Stone, like really hit it. But so he turns up for this gig, with a band, out of the blue. But they only got 15 minutes of, they got 3 songs that they do. An early version of, they go Maggie's Farm, an early version of Takes a Lot to, Takes a Lot to Train, Takes a Lot to Cry. Was it? Anyway, that song. Yeah. And something else. I can't remember what it is. Anyway,
and there's a famous Bob Dylan box set or bootleg. It's called the bootleg series or something.
Yeah. He's got about 94 in that bootleg series.
but there's one side designated to that concert, isn't it?
Yeah. I've had it for a long time on on bootleg and stuff. They play 15 minutes, and there's all manner of people think there's booing and stuff, and there's it's very difficult to work out what actually went on. There was a story that Pete Seeger, had threatened to take an axe to the cables to cut them off, and all sorts of things. Which he did say, if I had an axe, I would have, but he didn't have one. But
it kind of goes to show that folk society's very much very cliquey, reserved, almost like a society of intellectuals and rules. Very much a
So anyway, they. Absolutely. So they start, madness. They start, and of course, then Dylan went on this world tour after he played at Forest Hills. After that,
oh wow!
And people caught on to the sort of booing, so it became a sort of self-perpetuating thing where he would do the first half as an acoustic set, and then we'd do the second half, and people would boo in the second half.
Boo.
Yeah, boo. No, yeah, not like Bruce, but boo. Get up and all that stuff, and slow hand clapping and all those things. But I mean, the interesting part is, he played 15 minutes. And I think actually what happened was that he was supposed to play 45, and he played 15 minutes with these 3 songs with Mike Bloomfield, and they didn't have anything else. And of course he'd only done 15 minutes. They didn't have anything else. So there were people going, come on, do some more kind of thing, So he came back with his acoustic guitar. And did,
wow.
Do you remember that? He came out with his acoustic guitar and he didn't, and he's like, has anyone got any harmonica? Anybody at all? So, he's showered by harmonicas from the folk. So anyway, so he plays Mr. Tambourine Man, and he plays It's All Over Now, Baby Blue. Great, the final song, which is a magnificent song. But in that context, just saying to the folkies, bye, I'm gone, I'm going, I'm going back to my electric stuff, because obviously when he was a kid, he played electric. But,
and the interesting thing about that folk society is they had the Newport Folk Blues Festival.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
which was whoever organised that did a great job, because I think it started about 59, but it gave us Mississippi John Hurt, it gave us a lot of Southern bluegrass, it gave us Bob Dylan, it gave us Joan Baez, it gave us all these amazing acts, and it gave us the opportunity to listen to them because they recorded those concerts. Amazing.
That's right.
Concerts.
Yeah, and they made films as well, didn't they? There's film of it.
Yeah. So there was definitely some clever people in America capturing this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But like Bob Dylan, like Mike Bloomfield, like Eric Clapton, I mean, you can't play the same thing all over. These guys are artists; they've got to express themselves.
Completely.
Who wants to appeal to a society? A librarian society. Bring your books back. You can use this book, exchange this book. These guys were, like I said before, searching for that lost chord or that unusual scale. Searching for, trying to.
That's what I love about these guys, Carl. Jimi Hendrix was doing the same thing. He was looking for something different. Neil Young is the classic example of a guy that turned around and told his record companies, to get lost.
Prince.
They're asking him, for we want another Harvest album. Give us another Harvest, and he's saying, well, I'm past Harvest. So yeah. The fact that these guys had the courage. But how does that work though? How do these guys? Because normally when you read about these guys, they say they're gentle souls. Generally speaking, they're in that artistic mold where people have taken advantage of them. So at what point do they say no? Because they bloody getting a lot of pressure. Do they say we're just going to carry on doing what we want to do? It must have caused them a lot of anxiety as individuals.
But I think they have the trump card because they are the guys with the talent. They're the guys with the songwriting capabilities.
Good point. Talent's always going to win out, isn't it? Or generally speaking.
Because I think Neil Young and Bob Dylan are notorious for rolling up. You say, here we are, live, Founders Fair to Hamilton. Whole bunch of people hoping to see Neil Young play Old Man and Heart of Gold and
he won't do it.
and some concerts, just like Bob Dylan, they might play a whole bunch of unheard of songs that night or that day.
New stuff. Bob Dylan did the same thing here in Hamilton. He was here a couple of years ago. People turned up and he sang songs off his latest 2 albums, Simon, and pissed a lot of people off.
Yeah, I saw him about 4 years ago, and I just thought it was pretty interesting actually. It's quite rock. It's kind of rock. What's he doing? Was he frying up something, Carl, and making some breakfast? Reef. Tremendous. What we can do. Carl's doing his own cookery show now, and all it's or something. But
I'll tell you later.
Not sure I want to know, but anyway. But I think that point about, their restless spirit and that, and they're kind of wanting to move on to the next thing, and being in that culture where, it was an action. And, Dylan, sorry, I was going to talk about Dylan. When I saw him back for he did old, new, old, new, old, new. Now, I'm a bit of a fan of. I haven't got everything, but I've got most of Bob Dylan. So if he's going to play stuff off modern times and stuff, I'm all for that.
Sure.
Really good. And I really liked it. I thought it was really good. And as I say, he went back and forth between old and new, playing a lot of newer stuff. I thought that was completely fine. Saw him at the O2. He was, really good, and and he seemed really comfortable doing that. Yes,
I think their shows really highlight and show the real fans from the radio fans.
Yeah. And I'm sure
20,
that.
Yeah. You have 20% of the audience that just will love him just to play anything, and 80% waiting for him to play Mr. Tambourine Man or Logan.
Lay, lady, lay.
Off. He's off. Look out.
He does.
Yeah.
Show me your money.
Andrew's folk groups are coming out now.
So what happened to so once Mike Bloomfield helped out Bob Dylan?
Yeah. Good point. Helped them out.
Helped him out, and then Bob Dylan went his way and Mike went his way. Is that right? Or?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Mike Bloomfield was obviously, and he played on famously Like a Rolling Stone, particularly. But, and he did the Highway 61. But I think he didn't, Dylan wanted him to go on tour, but he didn't want to go on tour with Dylan, I don't think. And he continued with the Butterfield Blues Band, because that was, that was the band he was in. Yeah. And I think that, that the fact that Dylan had used him. I mean, play if Bob Dylan says to you, even at 65, oh, come and play on my record. You don't go, actually, Bob. Two Jewish musicians. I don't think even then people were turning Bob down. They were going, yeah, great. I come and play. But I think going on tour, with Dylan and stuff, and doing that, committing yourself to Dylan for him, not really what Mike Bloomfield wanted to do, because he had the Butterfield Blues Band, and that's what he was doing.
Yeah, and there's quite a few good, interesting connections with Jimi Hendrix's favorite songwriter was Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
And then Bob Dylan's the band recorded their famous album Music from the Big Pink at Bob Dylan's house.
Yeah, that's right. And the cover is painted by Bob Dylan. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Well, because that Music with the Big Pink came out of the Basement tapes. Because Dylan had his famous motorcycle accident in '67. And kind of, I think generally, because I think he was obviously a lot of drugs around at the time. Yeah. And I think heroin was playing its part in Dylan's life at that point, and he decided. That I think he just decided he'd take a year off, take a year out of it, and they would use this motorcycle accident as a kind of an excuse. They kind of big it up so that it sounded like he had quite a serious motorcycle accident. Well, I don't think it was that serious.
Okay.
And and basically he used this as an excuse to, skip off back to.
This was after the freewheeling Bob Dylan, eh?
This is after. This is after Blonde on Blonde, yeah. And then there's a world tour to go with it and stuff, and and I think he was very strung out on, and so he just took the opportunity because he'd had this crash to kind of get off the train for a bit, and obviously when he came back with John Wesley Harding, which is a kind of very meditative, quiet, three-piece record, just him, bass and drums.
1968.
Yeah, 1968. Yeah. Which he then famously took to Robbie Robertson and said, "What do you think?" And Robbie Robertson, to his credit, said, "Release it as it is. It doesn't need anything else. It's a fantastic record."
And it had the famous had All Along the Watchtower, didn't it?
Which of course had All Along the Watchtower in its original form, and which is where Hendrix got it from. But
and that particular album had the song where Judas Priest gets their name.
Yeah, Frankie Lee and Judas Priest. Yeah. The Ballad of Frankie Lee and Judas Priest.
Amazing, eh? All these connections.
All these connections, yeah, absolutely, and all these things, intertwine and everything. So I think that Dylan used that as an excuse to get off the train for a bit and kind of reset himself.
But like
as
the
I
Beatles.
say, yeah, and I think that that Mike Bloomfield, he wasn't in a position where he wanted to go and do a year's world tour, a 6-month world tour, being booed at.
Well, with that Cream comparison, Mike Bloomfield got heavy into that jamming sound, didn't he?
Yeah, completely.
He went from Chicago to California, that Fillmore West, Fillmore East, Al Cooper, Super Sessions. They did an amazing version of Green Onions live. That Super
Outstanding.
Sessions.
Outstanding. I love that Green Onions.
Yeah. Very. It's on the edge.
Yeah.
And then it's quite funny, like with the Stones. I mean, you had all these great albums, these live concerts, and then everything sort of stopped about 1970, didn't it?
Well, interesting. Well, Butterfield, interesting, completely. I watched. It was on the telly on where are we? Sunday, Friday night. Eric Clapton's Life in 12 Bars was on the telly here, and one of the things I didn't kind of realise is 71. Eric had kind of locked himself in a house for a year on his heroin, and guess what? It's the same. Mike Bloomfield did the same thing.
Yeah.
Kind of had 71 was his the heroin year.
Yeah.
Sounds horrible to me, but
and
it's
he kind of changed his look
fell
too.
off.
His afro got larger, and he's wearing jeans and looking a bit unkempt. And I think he did a lot of work with Otis Rush in the 70s too. Helped him out a bit, and
did a couple of hours with him, and doing all sorts of things. Just being a kind of
an arranger,
session musician, and arranger, and a producer and stuff as much as the playing. Yeah.
I worked on a house in Marin County, which north of San Francisco, which funnily enough, where Mike Bloomfield ended up. So there is a comparison with Grateful Dead. There is.
Yeah.
I think that Mike Bloomfield did like that jamming, easy, carefree, easy sound. Free shows, free concerts, love, peace, happiness, daffodils, daisies, and
Gladiola.
And probably the occasional pharmaceutical or plant.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But you can see, the movie. Apparently, he also he helped Janis Joplin as well, assemble her Cosmic Blues Band and things in '69. Co-wrote "Work for Me, Lord" on that other stuff.
Because when you watch him in interviews, he's a very intense guy. Yeah, a lot of energy and very
focused, very.
Yeah.
I love watching. Yeah, I love watching him talk because and especially I'm holding a guitar up here. You see him when he's locked in. He's got his guitar. He holds it up high.
Yeah,
and he's just.
Yeah.
And everything's groovy, isn't it? Everything's groovy.
Lost in the notes.
In those days, everything was groovy.
Yeah.
And but he. Yes, I think like a lot of those, you live on the West Coast, I mean, in those late 60s, 68, 69, jamming is the thing, isn't it? Going to, jamming, the Grateful Dead, doing very long concerts and stuff like that, lots of jamming, lots of unrehearsed stuff, working out.
So Eric Clapton played with like the Loving Spoonful, and they did a couple of numbers together with Steve Winwood. Did Mike Bloomfield ever jam with Eric Clapton at all? Is there anything available?
Up a good point. In 1966, there's an album called What's Shakin'. It's a famous album. It's never been released on CD, and it's on Elektra. And what the Elektra company was trying to do was try and merge these guys together. So What's Shaking had 3 songs by the Cream, the earliest recordings of Cream, where they did another version of Stepping Out. And they had some Paul Butterfield unreleased songs on there too with Mike Bloomfield, a song called One More Mile.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they probably jammed, but stuff as far as stuff on tape, I've never heard of it.
Wow.
I mean, you know more about Eric than me. What did Eric say about Mike Bloomfield?
Not
Or
much.
vice versa?
Nothing. There's
Not much, really.
Really?
No, they don't seem to have done much. Yeah, they don't seem to have talked about it much. I think they would people doing similar things in parallel in a funny kind of way. And as I said earlier, that parallel kind of influence in '65, with the Beano album, with the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, really influential. But in a similar way, I think, to musicians and stuff.
Yeah.
But parallel, but not much crossover between the two. And I don't, I've not read anything particularly that said that they met and they kind of jammed and they did, there was things for them to. I presume that their paths must have crossed. I can't, there are lots of mutual, stuff, but maybe they didn't cross that much actually. When Eric was doing Cream and things,
Because when Cream was going, they were pretty much touring and making albums for that 3 years constantly, weren't they?
Yeah.
From late '66 to was it mid '69 or early '69? Farewell Cream.
Yeah.
So what's that? 2.5 years of constant touring and working. They probably didn't have time, or maybe just the timing wasn't right.
Maybe not. No. Maybe they. I'm not saying necessarily that. That they.
Maybe there was ego involved. Who knows?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. But I think that as I say, that their careers were parallel, and they did a lot of the same sort. And their influence was, the influence of the. Of that first Paul Butterfield Blues Band is like the influence of the Beano album, in the UK.
okay.
Where post the Beano, every blues
searched,
band. Sorry, Andrew, carry on.
Okay, sorry, Simon. I'm lagging here. Sorry.
Lag away.
Mike Bloom. Yeah. So Clapton. He hung out with Mike Bloomfield and David Crosby, smoking pot and dropping a lot of acid. So
there's those famous pictures of Eric Clapton in San Francisco watching David Crosby play guitar. Eric was just watching him sitting down.
So this is 67, 66, 67, Disraeli Gears. So yeah, they did hang out. So if they're smoking pot and taking lots of acid, so let me just quote here, smoking pot and dropping lots of acid. At times I was actually playing on acid. I didn't know how I got through it. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so okay. Yeah, so they would have jammed. Clearly they would have jammed. So Eric would have been a big influence on Mike Bloomfield, would have been a huge influence on him.
I think so, yeah. And what I didn't realise is that Paul Butterfield recorded with the John Mayall's Blues Breakers.
Yeah. They did
in '67 in Hard Road.
They did pretty average recordings, but they did about 3 or 4 songs, which were on B-sides to 45s.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
Yeah. So pretty average.
Wow.
Yeah, but recorded in London as well, which is interesting.
Yeah.
When was that, Simon? What year? 67?
67, November 66. In England,
wow.
They recorded with John Mayall's Blues Breakers, yeah.
So they would have been on tour in the UK, and they would have just popped off to go and cut a couple of numbers.
Obviously,
I think
that usual thing.
John Mayall was signed to London Records, so Paul Butterfield would have been a guest musician.
Yeah. I mean, as so often happen, then people guest on other people's records. As we've seen, Mike Bloomfield played on all sorts of people's records, and so I think it was just a thing, wasn't it? Oh, come and play on my records,
Yeah.
Famous,
So Mike Vernon would have had something to do with that again, Mister Key,
British
important.
Blues.
Yeah, Mr. British Blues. He probably would have had something to do there.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
He's still,
Yeah.
yeah. He's been an unsung hero, isn't he? Mike Vernon, interesting.
Absolutely.
British blues things, kind of. But
father figure.
yes, kind of, yeah, yeah.
Actually, we know that he started that record label called Blue Horizon.
Yeah, that's right.
Which brought a lot of stuff that the English people never heard of to America, like Southern blues, Louisiana blues, and then Chicken Shack and Fleetwood Mac obviously signed to Blue Horizon.
Stan Webb's Chicken Shack.
Yeah.
Including
Christine Perfect,
yeah.
Yeah.
See if Andrew knows who Christine Perfect is.
McVie, Mrs. McVie.
Sorry, just be cheeky.
Yeah. No, there's amazing little connections with that, and these half these connections weren't planned; they just happened.
Yeah. Well, because as I said here, I think that we kind of underestimate, or we look at music now, and it's so vast, sprawling, and and there are whole artists and whole genres that if you don't know about. Then you miss people who are selling lots of things, selling out pretty big gigs and stuff like that. And if you're not in those genres, you don't know who they are at all. You miss it completely. Whereas in those days, that didn't really happen. It was a much smaller community, and I think they crossed over a lot more, didn't they?
We can just go to YouTube and just type in, for example, Simon Williams, Carl Wilson, John Smith Weston, Andrew Walton, whoever, and find out. Oh, he's a gunslinger, axe-slinger. He's on Spotify. He's got a band, or he plays a duo in Cliffs of Dover or whatever. But these guys, because TV would have been limited, there was no YouTube, no internet, radio, records. It would have been reputation. That's where they would have relied solely on reputation.
And the major thing, and I think it's that if you're under, well, probably under 50 now, but if you're under 40 now, you have no idea of the power of the music press. Rolling Stone magazine,
and album covers.
Certainly album covers, yeah, completely. You go into a record shop and you look at the album covers and trying to divine what something sounded like by the look of the album cover, somewhat tricky. But but you're right, but I think you never underestimate. I mean, I'm a little bit younger than this, but I started reading the NME, the New Musical Express, in '72. It was an astonishing paper. Nick Kent and Charles Shaar Murray and all these amazing writers, who introduced all sorts of philosophical, political stuff into their writing. And it was, but that's where you read about Electric Flag. That's where you read about Bob Dylan going on tour. All these, and those things about the press reporting what you're doing, and a much not like today where it's the internet and all of that. So you wait until Wednesday to see who was coming on tour and whose tickets were coming out and where they were going, and it was all about that. And I've talked about queuing up for tickets and stuff. You
bring up a good point. The press and obviously the album covers, but also the importance of which could make or break bands was the which we'll talk about with Johnny Winter. It was free concerts like Woodstock that really,
Woodstock, Monterey, an
unknown into all of a sudden an overnight success.
Completely, and I think that's it's all part
the
of that
importance of these
counterculture, isn't it? That was about then. But you're absolutely right, and of course the other thing is the AM radio. Isn't it? It's the album playing AM radio thing, which Yeah, that's true, Alvin. Yeah, completely. Yeah, album notes. And do you remember they used to have in CBS? You'd take out the inner sleeve, and it would have adverts for all their other artists and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so
That's right.
really interesting that people did that. But obviously that's because we got the advent of AM radio. Then, haven't we? Albums where albums were played. You play the whole of whatever was the latest album coming out and things. Those radio stations, those hit radio stations that played albums, played much more underground.
Well,
things.
those Jewish music owners who owned Blue Note Records, which I've got maybe 1,000 records, and when you collect records, you hope that the record comes with the original inner sleeve. And Blue Note Records started that with the inner sleeve advertising all the other artists.
Yeah.
So you're exactly right. So here's a young Simon, a young Andrew, a young Carl thinking, wow, cool, Beano album, Eric Clapton, I like this, spooky cover. Who are these guys? And your inner sleeve, and all of a sudden, Decca Records, Rolling Stones, Hollies, whole bunch of not Hollies, sorry, the Zombies, Rod Argent, all these other great bands. Like, wow, let's go and check out these guys. So marketing was integral.
Yeah, and I think what you guys are saying that's important, and we're not denying the fact that record stores and record covers and the press was important. But I read a book recently what's called the British Blues Network, and the author talks about the fact that people form groups, of information. So on a Friday, we would go to Carl's place and we would spend half an hour there, or at the pub, or at a coffee bar, or somewhere, and we'd be talking about what album have you been listening to, what have you got, because Carl's opinion or Simon's opinion meant something to me, because they put me onto 3 other bands, so that social network was important, and they took advantage of traveling the distance, because you had highways, you had public transport, so going 20 miles or 30 miles out of town to go and catch up with someone and talk to someone about some records or a band was important. Today we just do that on the internet. We just send a link, and we got Simon here and Carl here, and we're doing the same thing, but not personally, not face to face.
Yeah.
And can you imagine those groups, those really what's the word? What the word escapes me? These passionate groups that would have had a meeting after Bob Dylan went electric. What are we going to do with them? What's going to happen? Punching walls. Let's get them. Let's burn his records.
Yeah.
So you're exactly right. I mean, San Francisco had a scene. Chicago had a scene. London had a scene. Liverpool would have had a scene, which would have probably turned into London. All these countercultures and these scenes. San Francisco would have had a huge scene.
Of course.
Yeah. And San Francisco basically was the, I guess what's the
hippie capital.
Yeah, really, so Chicago had the blues bedrock foundation, but San Francisco had the white, for lack of a better word, young college hippie scene.
Certainly college hippie scene. Yeah.
San Francisco was the birth of rock and roll becoming an industry.
Well, I guess, yeah. I don't know. There was something in the air there, and it just became the place of free concerts and jamming, and anything goes, basically. Love and hate. Hate Ashbury.
Yes.
Well, the Stones wanted to play there, didn't they? Originally, they wanted to play at some park in San Francisco, but couldn't get that park, so they had to go to Altamont. So San Francisco.
Probably it almost became the place of supergroups as well. The Fillmores and the free concerts, the Dead. I guess the Dead were basically I think the Dead were backing bands to a lot of bands too, weren't they?
I don't know which one. Well, obviously they did Dylan in the 80s and stuff, but it's it's the guys in the chat, Arvin and Sonia, talking about college radio as well. I don't know if was college radio a thing then back in the 60s? I think of it as being more of a 70s and 80s thing, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
I'd say certainly a 70s and 80s thing. I don't know if it was a 60s thing, but if you wanted to listen to anything that alternative in New Zealand, it was the student university radio stations.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Which I think of being a bit later than that, kind of. I think of REM, for instance, as being the great college radio sort of band, if you like, broken via college radio.
And I wonder if there was any groups that were probably anti-radio, anti-commercial, or anti-record company. Probably, eh?
Well, I think probably, but
MC5.
The MC5. But I also think that that famous, we've talked about it on here before, that Frank Zappa interview, where he talks about, that in the 60s, all the old guys were in charge of the record companies. They didn't really know what was going on. So they just released stuff, without any kind of critical,
just
release it. Just release it, throw enough money at the wall, see what sticks.
Get it out.
And, so you've got all manner of, left field stuff and things like that, minor bands, releasing albums and doing things that that probably wouldn't have got released. And then they then, as Andrew said, I think last week, they then hired the heads, the sort of people who they thought knew, and of course that ruined it, because those people came in and they applied their taste to things.
It was the fans. The fans went to the record guys and said,
"What's cool
we'll tell you what's cool."
Yeah, we'll tell you what's cool. And those older record guys didn't know what was cool, so they didn't care, so just release stuff. So all that late 60s stuff, you could release albums of you jamming, making weird noises, doing what you like, all those Mothers of Invention records. I can't imagine those Uncle Meat and, Lumpy Gravy and all those that are very strange records, all manner of
Frank Zappa says it himself, Simon.
He
said that those record cats executives wouldn't have released any of their albums.
Yeah.
But the nice old guy wearing the tie, in his 60s at Capitol Records or whatever, said, "Okay, all right, this guy looks interesting. We could sell 1 million copies. Okay, Simon."
Yeah. So they just put it out, and
put it out.
So they just, and I think as soon as you apply taste to things, what's hip and what's not and stuff like that, you get a different thing. And I think, you move into the 70s and stuff, and, you get, it's a different vibe in the record company, from say 68, when 67, 68, when a lot of things just got released. And I think that
so you go, Andrew.
Oh, so we're talking about records here. So was Mike Bloomfield ever a big seller? Did he sell a lot of records? Was he ever like he's a guitar player? If you love the blues,
never had a hit song that I could think of.
Well, well, he played on Like a Rolling Stone. That's a complete bona fide classic. But I agree.
But
not
he was
of his own.
He was a singer in his own right. He was a singer in his own right.
Yeah, but he never really had that. He never really had a sort of take-off album, did he? That sold millions of copies and did that. No, you're completely right about that. He's retained, I don't know what you might call a cult interest or a.
So why are we talking about him 40 years later?
Could I say?
So what makes him so important then? If we're talking about him 40 years later,
I would say unique, innovative. Surround himself with legends. He took the blues scale to an Eastern Melodian scale, an East-West.
Yeah.
He bit like he basically was like Rory Buchanan last week. a musician's musician.
Yeah, and I think
he wasn't.
Yeah, I know. Yes, see, that's what I was laughing at. That's just brilliant, Arvin. That's so cool. Can't picture Captain Beefheart.
We're not laughing at your profound statement, Carl. It's just Arvin saying, "Can you picture Captain Beefheart on America's Got Talent?"
Yeah,
yeah.
But we've got to appreciate, I think, the English artists too, because I know that all these Americans would be just waiting on a Beatles or a Stones or a Cream album to come out, because that was the benchmark of what was really going on. What are these guys up to?
Yeah.
So I think so Mike Bloomfield's the counterbalance to that, is he?
I sincerely think that he was a fan of his, as far as what are these guys doing, and vice versa. I think they were fans of his.
Yeah, so, I think that's right.
It shows you the power of the album, as a body of work, not a single, not a song. I mean, everybody wants a hit song to make money, but albums were statements.
Yeah. I think that and it's interesting, is it, that in the 60s, and I think of particularly different genre, but the Velvet Underground, it is famously said about the first Velvet Underground record, they only sold 5,000 copies, but each one of those 5,000 copies was bought by somebody who then formed a band. I think that Mike Bloomfield is the American Eric Clapton. Sorry, got a frog. And in that sense, and that influence that he had with Paul Butterfield in that blues band, playing that blues stuff, and then the East-West thing, which is very much more kind of Eastern ragga influence thing, you could see it expanding. And I think that if that turns up on your doorstep in 65, that is going to influence you, and as we said, that community is not that big, therefore everyone knows who Mike Bloomfield is. Jerry Garcia knows who Mike Bloomfield is. And Janis Joplin, all those people, they know who Mike Bloomfield is. They know what a great guitar player is. They know what he does. And you put, you get the record, you put it on, you go, wow, listen to that, man. We should be doing some of that, or whatever. So I think that that he may not have sold millions of records himself, but by doing things like the Dylan thing, by association, you're playing on that. People are going, because I think it's very difficult now to to feel what it's like when, if you heard Like a Rolling Stone, for instance, on the radio for the first time. I know Bruce Springsteen talked about this. You heard this, crack of the snare drum, and you come in with that da 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 da, and Dylan singing, "How does it feel?" in that kind of feel way. You cannot underestimate, the kind of the power of that on groups of young musicians, on kind of showing them what they could do, where you could take this stuff, because music is going like that,
and within 5 minutes of that song being released, Jimi Hendrix does a cover.
Completely, yeah, and and everybody's raving about it, and it and all those guys listen to it on the radio and stuff like that, and what they hear is Mike Bloomfield playing guitar.
And what I like about Jimi Hendrix, to counter the protesters of going electric, was he said, "Screw you guys," and burnt his guitar. Yeah. Set light to it with lighter fuel, yes. Rather an effectually one feels, but I don't think lighter fuel goes that well, does it?
but he was certainly inspired by Jerry Lee Lewis, wasn't he? He'd heard about Jerry Lee Lewis making a statement at one gig before somebody else bigger than Jerry Lee Lewis. But who came on after Jimi Hendrix? Who was the headliner after Jimi Hendrix? Can you guys remember?
Otis Redding.
Was it
What,
Otis
Monterey?
Redding
Is it
at Monterey?
Yeah. Otis Redding, yeah.
Yeah. So
Cool.
I think from memory.
So it was pretty cool of him to make, like he just didn't finish his set and bow and say thank you and wave off. He
Was the Who at Monterey? They were, right?
Simon's going to have a look for us.
I've got Jimi Hendrix, the Mamas and the Papas, Buffalo Springfield, the Who, the Grateful Dead.
Yeah. I think
Garfunkel?
Jimmy upstaged the Who. Jimmy upstaged the Who.
Yes, it was the Who. That's right.
Because the Who bashed up all their gear.
That's right. And who's the guitar player from the Who with the big nose? What's his name?
Townsend.
He was pissed off. He was a bit pissed off.
I like the guy with the big nose. Like there's 4 guitarists in the Who. Oh, which one is it? Which one could it be? I mean, you are talking, the guitarists. I mean, you are talking about the Who's Who here of rock. I mean, unbelievable the number of people that the association.
I think Andrew and I were talking about this, and I was talking about this with my real estate guys. Simon, Hamilton's not the biggest place, but we had an amazing main street. Not only do we have like record stores, Carl Wilson, Richard Fox, Andrew Walton, Cookie, but we had 3 movie theatres, which were classic Roman-inspired architecture. The Regent,
right?
Carlton, amazing movie theatres.
Yeah.
But
Same
do you remember the Monterey at the movie theatres in the late 80s, early 90s?
I do, because I remember going to.
Did you go, Andrew, in Hamilton to the showing?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I went to see Woodstock in the cinema.
I saw Woodstock too at the Embassy Theatre.
Yeah.
Wow. And it's just unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah. Look, let me just read out the talent at Monterey is unbelievable. I mean, it's just Butterfield Blues Band played there. Quicksilver Message Service, Steve Miller, Electric Flag, Country Joe and the Fish, Big Brother and the Holding Company, obviously with Janis Joplin.
Wow.
Canned Heat, Simon and Garfunkel, Eric Burden and the Animals. It's just Jefferson Aeroplane, Laura Nyro, Booker T and the MGs, Otis Redding on the Saturday, the Byrds, Moby Grape.
And there's that famous picture of Brian Jones looking like a cosmic prince and Hendrix walking down with a Budweiser can.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we've got
all that lace and tweed.
Yeah, Buffalo Springfield. On Sunday, you had Buffalo Springfield, the Who, Grateful Dead, the Jimi Hendrix Experience, the Mamas and the Papas, Scott McKenzie. I mean, just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Kind of, you had the Who, the Grateful Dead, and the Jimi Hendrix Experience, and then the Mamas and the Papas. It's doing their kind of California dreaming stuff. But
what was the fee? What was the fee for repair of the stage and compensation for instruments at the end?
God knows. That's hilarious. Yeah. Millions. Yeah. Anybody make any money out of these things? Not really.
Everything was burnt down.
Well, crowd estimates for the festival have been ranged from 25,000 to 90,000, so nobody knows. Yeah. But just an astonishing lineup of that. If you want to know what's going on in San Francisco in that time, Steve Miller Band, all those bands, everybody played there. Butterfield Blues Band, Quicksilver Messenger Service, all of them, amazing kind of lineup, and some of them doing.
Brian Jones introduced the Americans to Jimi Hendrix in a really quiet speech, didn't he?
Yeah. It's just.
And he goes to proceed to play Killing Floor.
Yep.
Let's have a look. What did Hendrix do? Yeah, introduced by Brian Jones. Killing Floor, Foxy Lady, Like a Rolling Stone. There we are. Wow. Rock Me Baby, Hey Joe, Can You See Me, The Wind Cries Mary, Purple Haze, and Wild Thing.
Wow.
And he had his guitar painted too, like Eric's guitar, the full.
Did he? Yeah.
Well, yeah. He had a vision. his version of a painted guitar. Yep.
So yeah, you could just imagine that as just an amazing.
And so Mike Bloomfield would have been there, right?
Well, I presume, yeah, either as part of Electric Flag or as part of the
Electric
Paul
Flag were
Butterfield
there.
Blues
Yeah.
Band. Electric Flag, yeah, they were there. Yeah, they played.
Wow.
Yeah, they played on which day? Saturday. They played on Saturday. Basically, we played 4 songs introduced by David Crosby. Grooving is easy, over loving you, nighttime is the right time, and wine. So let's just see if that's yeah. So yeah, he did play there with all those guys. Amazing.
Just goes to show you once again, because we're so spoilt with social media and information being so accessible, the power of the album, to a lesser extent the radio and live concerts, and the students, the student bodies, the council, certain fan clubs, pen pals,
What's interesting about this, I think, that reading, just looking at it, is I reckon they did about, each band did about, what, half an hour, 40 minutes?
Yeah.
I mean, Simon and Garfunkel did 7 songs. Well, Homeward Bound and 59th Street Bridge Song, Feeling Groovy, Sound of Silence. So, yeah, but they must have played for half an hour each, kind of thing. Yeah, there's not. They're not 2 hours, kind of, sort of long sets, are they? Kind of, each performance lasted around 4 hours. So each day only lasted about 4 hours.
The unsung hero too of the '60s was not only the album and the album covers and the musicians, but the people, the artists that designed the posters advertising these bands.
Yeah.
Those posters go for thousands of dollars. There's a Phil Maurice posters with, a kind of a half-naked lady introducing Santana, backed up by Albert King, Tina Turner. Awesome, amazing artwork.
So anything associated with these gigs is worth coin.
Absolutely, amazing. Wow. I had a researched this. I had a Jimi Hendrix poster which I sold. There was a thing called blue light pictures or artists or something, black light or blue light, and it was a famous artist that did stuff in San Francisco. And I mean, even the artwork and spreading around these posters and licking these posters and putting them on billboards and notice boards and classrooms and hallways, and amazing.
Was that when you were in the States or here in New Zealand, Carl?
Oh, when I was in the States, when I was big into eBay, I flirted with it a little bit, but I couldn't afford it. But researching it, those probably, I forgot what they call them. They were the size of 2A4s, but they advertised 6 acts, and they had I've got a couple of Stones ones advertising, Get Yaya's out, Rolling Stones, Tina Turner, Ike Turner, BB King, Jefferson Starship. 4 acts on the gig, on the bill.
Yeah.
So
amazing. Amazing.
So that was another way of getting the message across. We don't see that now as much because of the internet age, but word of mouth was through, all these posters they put these posters on power poles.
Yeah.
With staples.
Yeah.
Wooden power poles.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I can remember doing that, going out with a paste bucket and pasting posters for my friend the Blue Airplanes gigs, in Bristol. Yeah, you're pasting them on all these places, billboard, disgraceful vandalism. No, not.
Awesome.
Yeah, I can remember doing that, going out, and that's funny. I think, I'm amazed that that in the '60s, of course, we forget that those guys didn't do 2-hour sets. They weren't doing 2.5-hour gigs. They were doing 25 minutes, half an hour.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
you would have to play. Let's say there's 10 acts on the bill, and let's say half the acts you've never heard. You have to play your best because it's probably pretty competitive.
Yeah. Was it? Jimi Hendrix. Famously, Jimi Hendrix went on tour in the UK, and top of the bill on I think it's his first one, was none other than Engelbert Humperdinck. And you can't imagine two different artists than Jimi Hendrix and Engelbert Humperdinck on the same bill.
Engelbert, let's call the fire department, get a fire extinguisher. We're going to have to get the stage ready. So probably about an hour delay.
Well, they didn't learn, did they? Because that second tour, they put them on with the monkeys.
Yeah, they put on the monkeys, yeah. Well,
13-year-old girls going to see Jimi Hendrix.
Yes, it's disgraceful.
So you had 40-year-old woman on one tour and 13-year-old girls on the other.
But what's amazing, and I learned this a little bit with Pantera, is within 6 months.
Look at that! We've gone from Engelbert Humperdinck to Pantera in one sentence. Boom!
Well, I think Pantera opened up for a really crappy band, but within 6 months they were the top of the bill.
Who was the band?
So, was it some hairspray band in America?
Oh,
wow! The point I'm making is, within a very short amount of time, Engelbert Humperdinck would have been the opening act, and Hendrix would have been the closing act.
Yeah.
Possibly, they wouldn't have been on the same bill ever again. But whoever decides, I think you've got. I mean, it's an amazing kind of. These days you look back on it now. The kind of somebody decided when Humperdinck, that's fine. We'll put Hendrix on with him. It's like, really? I mean, now you just wouldn't do it. You'd be going, no, that's two different audiences. Go somewhere else. And they would never the twain would meet. But just to have the kind of, I don't know whether they just didn't think about it. Just go, get out on tour. Here's 4 bands, 4 slots. Get in the coach. Off you go. Engelbert's top of the bill.
Is it the old guys? Is it the old guys, Simon, in control of the record companies that are pushing that kind of agenda through, or is this the young hippies getting there, sort of not knowing what they're doing?
Larry Parnes or somebody, I think that that is still the tail end of people who don't really haven't paid attention much, haven't done so, just send them out the tour, be fine, and not thinking about it, because I don't think people did, they had variety shows and all. That had magicians and bands and all sorts of stuff on.
Maybe they were just ahead of their time, Simon. They were just like foreseeing the Rolling Stones. They were going to have 5 generations of people at one concert.
Well, I was just going to say that actually, that their way of looking at it was you broaden your audience. You're not.
Maybe they didn't have the heart to tell Engelbert Humperdinck you're fired.
So we'll go on tour with Jimi Hendrix.
You're top of the bill. I don't think, I think, they're thinking, we'll send Engelbert out. He's the draw, and we'll send out these other younger cats, to go and play, and maybe we'll get some sales off the back of it. It's like, these days, you should be going, don't do it that. It's a bit, to me, it's the precursor of the Sunday afternoon set at Glastonbury, isn't it? Where they always have a kind of music legend, turns up, Neil Diamond or something like that, turns up in place. It's a bit like the opposite way round, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I love that as an idea, though, sending out Jimi Hendrix and Engelbert. I mean, and I'd love to know who set that up, See if I can find that. It's just so much fun. But Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah. Oh no, you're right. I mean, it's what you find is probably what I was seeing the Stones is the record companies they're signed to the same labels. So I guess they've got to be what's the word? They've got to be equally mutual with all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there was a famous Yardbirds, or was it? Yardbirds with Jimmy Page, and there was a whole bunch of strange acts that were supporting them. So yeah.
I'm just looking this up now just to see what's apparently. Like this, you see, this is even more. It gets more bizarre. It says that a few times Jimi Hendrix played with Engelbert, backed him up. I don't know how many concerts we did get on at all, but it was quite a thrill to be sharing the same stage as Jimi Hendrix. Oh, I can't. One night, I can't remember exactly. One night, my guitarist didn't show up. In fact, he didn't even call. Jimmy came over and said, "Don't worry, man, I'll play for you." And I told him the audience think it was bizarre if he was on stage. He went, "I'll play behind the curtain." So he went behind the curtain on the side of the stage and played. Can you imagine?
Well, Jimi Hendrix started out. He played Little Richard and the Isley Brothers.
Yeah.
So he started out backing, a bit like Ray Charles. In order for them to be, multi-talented, they had to play lots of different styles. So it would have been probably quite easy for him to just find a pocket to sit in.
Yeah.
Play some R&B kind of chords instead of, some wild solos.
So,
Jimi Hendrix, a gentleman.
Yeah. Well, indeed, yeah. No, I'm kind of quite happy.
So Jimmy, on this song, we won't need any lighter fluid.
Yeah, if you don't mind not setting fire to the theatre.
Yeah, please.
While I'm doing my set, for the middle-aged women in the audience.
Edward, there's a fire.
Oh dear, it's pretty hilarious, isn't it? It's just wonderful. Juxtaposition. Just to give you a cue, the package tour featured the Walker Brothers, Scott Walker, Cat Stevens, Engelbert Humperdinck, the Californians. Who were they? The Quotations and MC Nick Jones. Now, the first night is featured the Experience performing 2 sets. Hendrix managed to seal the spotlight on this night as he lit his guitar during fire.
Wow.
Yes.
I wonder if Jimi Hendrix had 2 guitars with his set, a Stratocaster he'd keep and the cheaper Squire to put the fire on. Surely he wasn't burning those Stratocasters.
Yeah, it was. Well, apparently, let me just read this because this is hilarious. It was a strange situation. Keith Altham said, because it took him quite a long time to get it alight. He was having it to dodge behind the amplifiers on the stage with a box of matches, and it wasn't going up. Eventually, he did get it going. It sort of took off quite spectacularly. The security guy in the wings was going bananas and trying to rush on stage with a fire extinguisher. Eventually, he did and managed to spray the compare. We were not too amused. When we came out to the dressing room afterwards, all hell broke loose. The security guy said, "You'll never work in this circuit again. He'll never play any of these theatres. How dare he do something like that? He could have burned the place down. What did he mean by swinging it around his head?" Jimmy said, "Well, I was trying to put it out."
So the accountant says, Jimmy, here's your bill for the Stratocaster. It's $1,500, and here's your bill for the show for the repairs and insurance premiums, $3,000. You're not making any money, Jimmy.
Stop setting fire to guitars, Jimmy, or set fire to the one you set fire to yesterday.
You haven't actually paid for it.
Yeah, keep it out of one, would you? Oh dear, I'm sorry, I had to read that out because that's just hysterical. Really, like old school. Oh, got setting fire to things. Oh, you can hear him saying it. Oh, gonna burn down the building.
What about Engelbert's guitar player? Hey, Engelbert, where's my guitar gone? I haven't seen it.
Yeah, Jimmy set fire to it.
Flames.
Yeah, that's how he got out of wasting his own guitars. He burnt Engelbert's guitar. Oh, great! Fantastic. I still can't find out on. I can't remember who put them together, but see, the promoter was just. But yeah, I mean, it's just part of those late '60s kind of package tours, didn't they? Where they just sent people out playing. If you had a hit, you'd be playing.
Yeah,
off you would go. Yeah.
Oh, it would have been amazing to be not in England but America with those package shows. Like, for example, we got to see the first part, what created Led Zeppelin in '68 with Jimmy Page doing the first versions of Dazed and Confused and all those songs.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Bloomfield, once again, the Butterfield Blues Band, I'm pretty sure they would have been on bills, the Doors. I mean, you would have got, for $15 or $25, you would have got your money worth seeing 5 or 6 acts, wouldn't you?
Oh, easy.
Easily. Yeah.
I mean, and you could probably go a bit late, cut the first 2 acts, the quotations. Sounds like a mathematical band, and skip the Walker Brothers,
Yeah. Oh, completely. Yeah. Well, the Beatles used to do them as well, didn't they? Do you know what? Everyone did those kind of package tours where they went out with, half a dozen acts went out and they each did 25 minutes or something, and you've got your, you get your two or 3 hours in, start at 8, finish at, or 7:30, finish at 10:30 kind of thing, 3 hours, whistle through. Everyone does 20 minutes. Thank you very much. Play your hits, get off. It's much to be said for it, I think.
And when the bands got bigger and the PA systems came in and the stadiums got bigger and they kind of weeded out the smaller bands and you had your rock arena type bands, the Eagles, Fleetwood Mac, the Stones, Elton John, Queen. Did you just have 2 bands? You had an opening act, then you had the main band, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh, you have a support band and the main band, pretty much, yeah. Or, people like Led Zeppelin just never had support,
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Because you play in 3 hours, you see. They played 3 hours,
wow.
Zeppelin, basically no support. You just, unless it was a longer show, but pretty much a lot of them, no support. Because
in a way, those support bands to get on that bill would have been, hey guys, this is a chance to make it. Let's play our tail off, because that's you're getting a big audience to see you if you're relatively unknown.
Completely, yeah. Oh, you can see that as a kind of the way of doing it.
Remember in 1981, the Fabulous Thunderbirds opened up for the Rolling Stones, and George Thorogood, no one knew about him, opened up for the Stones.
Yeah. I saw
so it was a major thing to be on a big act, big bill.
Yeah. I remember I saw Leonard Skinner. I've told this story. Leonard Skinner, they supported Golden Earring. First time they came to the UK, they supported Golden Earring. And, so they played 45 minutes, support set at the Colston Hall in Bristol. And of course, Leonard Skinner had 2 great songs and Golden Earring only had 1. And they were just unbelievably good, because they had Freebird. They finished with Freebird and they played Sweet Home Alabama as well, and frankly, you've got those 2 songs, you're going to kill it, aren't you, wherever you are, in 1974 or whatever it was, 3 or 4, and they absolutely killed them. And they got an encore. They were the only support band I've ever seen get an encore.
Wow.
Because nobody else got an encore, really. The other support bands just played, and they give 3 guitars and Freebird at the end. They got an encore. It was just almost unheard of, really, that they did that. But the other person I remember seeing
was Golden Earring. Was that Radar Love? Was it?
Yeah, Radar Love. Yeah. But of course, that's a great
driving song.
It's
a song that's only cool when you're in your car and you happen to have a V8.
It's a good song, but
you drive the V8 at night time.
Yeah, but name any other Golden Earring songs.
No.
We're all stuck, straight away. No idea. But of course, and that was, whereas Leonard Skinner, you can go, oh yeah, Freebird, Sweet Home Alabama, and straight away you're on the winner. But the other person I remember seeing was, do you remember, I don't know the sensational Alex Harvey band? Do you remember them?
I know of, yeah.
Yeah, look him up. He used to have, Alex Harvey was kind of singing, but he used to have a kind of house on the stage. And he would spray it, or he'd get somebody's kind of Vambo Rules OK as one of the songs. Worth looking at.
Was his image kind of a scary guy?
Yeah, kind of piratical. He wore a sort of blue and white striped T-shirt and kind of boots and stuff. But he's from Glasgow, so quite scary anyway. But worth having a look at. Quite theatrical band. But they were supported by by Pat Travers. Do you know who Pat Travers is? So
name.
Yeah, no, Pat Travers. Right, Pat Travers in a sort of brazen piece of marketing, handed out cardboard guitars to people so they could go. You didn't need to play an air guitar. You could step up and have an actual cardboard guitar to play, full size Telecaster, I think it was. Yes, he handed out off to the people in the front row, in the audience. Fantastic, yeah. You couldn't compete with Alex and his house on the stage, though. And Zal Clemson, the guitarist Zal Clemson, used to have this kind of white makeup, kind of like it's a classic clown makeup.
Was Alex Hart kind of like the white version of Screaming Jay Hawkins coming up often?
A bit, yeah, but it's he had a hit with Delilah. Basically, had a hit with a rock version of Tom Jones's Delilah. That was obviously, he put on a lot of swagger and a lot of, and quite a bit of rock into it. And give it some, and it'd be great. Yeah, it was really good. It was a real showstopper, for them. Amazing. Sorry, we've digressed. Yes, a long way from Mike Bloomfield to Alex Harvey, but still. Talk about support bands. Can I say good morning to Jack Daniels? Morning, Jack. How you doing? Hope you're good. That's funny. But I think going back to Paul Butterfield, we want to go back. I think one of the things, that thing about, him, like Eric Clapton, he had the Telecaster like Eric did, but he's interested. He had the Fender amps, not the Marshall amps, kind of thing, going for the slightly cleaner sound, but nevertheless, playing, creating a new sound, creating a thing, that other people then copied. Having a Fender amps and later on,
I think
hacking up his telly.
Santana's first album was 68 or 69.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
All right.
Well, I mean, Santana was definitely influenced by Mike Bloomfield for sure.
I think so. I'm just
he
I'm
has. Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. Him.
Making this connection. So
yeah.
Mike Bloomfield, in a way, was you're exactly right. Was the which Eric was good at, but we all got a little bit sick of it. But Eric got burnt out, which was the 10-minute guitar solos. But it did have its place in time with that era. Free shows, looking for that that lost chord, that lost scale. Students, young people, California, blue sky, hippies, change, democracy, all that sort of stuff. Hippie movement, really.
Yeah.
So and Santana at Woodstock, we'll talk about this some other time, but Soul Sacrifice. I mean, all on acid, nothing planned. Nothing planned.
No, jamming and 69 was Santana's first album. 69.
Wow. Okay. So all those bands leading up to, those albums leading up to Santana's album, Mike Bloomfield, Super Sessions, Electric Flag, was it?
Yeah.
Classics. They may not have sold 1 million copies, but as far
influential.
In musical circles, heavyweight albums.
Completely heavyweight albums, and and I think that you're right that influence, that kind of Eastern influence that he seems to have done before anybody else, introducing lots of other guitarists like Jerry Garcia, Santana.
Yep.
They picked up on those things and started introducing those into their playing style. As you said, Garcia being much more of a kind of bluegrass player.
Yeah.
And I think
that works song, which was an amazing song they did on East West. That was a jazz cover, a blue note cover of a saxophone.
Mm-hmm.
So research the work song. East West, I don't know where that came. I think East West was an original, but once again, I remember being with my uncle and we're listening to that. He just got married, and we were just amazed because Michael and Albin exchanged guitar solos. There was a very much a respect there as far as your turn, Mike, your turn, Albin. The album.
Oh, I think so.
album
Yeah,
was
you want to go back and forth. Yeah.
Hey, before we end the show, Carl and Simon, can you just tell me what that album was that Alvin Bishop did that you said's really important? I can't remember.
South's Greatest Hits.
South's Greatest Hits.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, I think definitely worth looking up. Yeah. I mean, yeah. God. Yes. I mean that the work song is a hard bop song, isn't it? It's you kind of think very very jazzy.
Does it say which jazz musician did it originally, or
usually goes
Ornette Coleman?
The album also includes Mary Mary's, written by Mike Nesmith of the Monkees. That's funny. Yeah.
And they did a cover of Alan Toussaint, I think.
Alan Toussaint, yeah.
A New Orleans song, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it took lots of elements of different things and pulled them together as a like Indian music and stuff, especially, which must be really early, 66 to be producing that. There won't be many people playing that at that.
Well, if you think about it, so 66, you had Mike Bloomfield bringing in those Eastern scales, which was unheard of in rock circles. Unheard of. That's it. That's it. Amazing.
Yeah.
Cheers.
And that same year, you had Brian Jones with the sitar doing Painted Black, unheard of at that time. Doors doing Doors' first album came out late '66, didn't it? With some Eastern influence.
Yeah.
So,
of course, the one that springs to my mind is in that kind of is 8 Miles High by the Byrds, which has that kind of Coltrane, doesn't it? That solo is influenced by them spending a lot of time listening to John Coltrane.
It's rumored that Brian Jones helped write that song in a New York hotel room.
That's not true. That's a myth.
Okay, I thought it might.
No. So it is a myth. Brian Jones never helped to write 8 Miles High.
Can you attempt singing that, because I don't have the falsetto voice?
8 miles high, do, and when we touch down. There you are.
What the hell are they thinking about it or doing? How high are they going?
Yeah, well, David Crosby, yeah, beautiful. I mean, that's high. Yeah. It's very high. Higher than I can go. But well, I mean, that's one of the classic things about the Byrds, isn't it? That kind of that 3-part harmonies. I mean, David Crosby, that he just took that to Crosby, Stills and Nash. Crosby, Stills and Nash. The one thing again, that great vocal group, fantastic vocal group. Music's
great, but we'll have to do a show way later on down the road about Graham Parsons and what he brought to the Byrds.
Ooh, yeah.
Which turned into the Flying Burrito Brothers.
Yep, the Gilded Palace of Sin. I got that. It's
basically country and western on acid.
Well, country rock, really, wasn't it? They invented,
yeah.
You could make
which
a case
in turn influenced the Eagles, Neil Young.
That. Yeah, completely. Yeah. They took it and made it a genre, didn't they? Kind of thing.
Pretty much. And once again, I mean, their roots were San Francisco, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Flying Burrito Brothers. Yeah, they formed in the West Coast. Yeah, well, that's not where they came from, but for sure.
And the legacy of the Flying Burrito Brothers, with contemporary artists, Ryan Adams. He's
absolutely.
And
they call that music now Americana.
Yeah, which is an interesting term because, record companies always have to have a label, don't they, to market something, don't they?
Yeah,
it's an interesting.
And actually, we also like a label because we can go, I like these bands and I like Americana. Therefore, who else is in Americana? So, in effect, to enable you to find new artists in a similar genre, it's quite useful to have a genre, if you sort of mean. So we can go, oh, I like them from Americana. Perhaps I like these guys from Americana, kind of thing. Because I looked up Americana.
Well, there was a magazine that came out in New Zealand, which has since discontinued, which spotlighted a lot of that music. And my uncle's friend helped write articles. Grant McCullum was No Depression. Do you remember that, Andrew? That magazine, or
Yeah.
So that basically gave the New Zealanders an insight on what was hip as far as Americana was concerned, about great music coming out that wasn't commercial, anti-radio.
Anti-radio. Yeah, the radio was the enemy. Commercial radio, anyway.
I think so. Hey, what I'll tell you what's going on here in Simon in this country. We'll close out soon, but so we have TV3. We only have 3 channels here. It's getting the axe. And I just said, my mum said, "What's going on, Carl?" I said, "Well, it's a sign of the times. I don't have a TV." Everyone gets information either from the computer, but no one buys the newspaper. They get the news from online, Netflix, movies, documentaries, series.
No one watches state-funded TV.
Advertising companies are going elsewhere.
Yep.
Well, they're doing YouTubes, aren't they? They're doing YouTube adverts and stuff like that, which is,
Yep.
If you've got 22 million subscribers worldwide, and you stick an advert in front of potentially those guys, you are getting.
Why would we wait 3 months to see a Beatles documentary on TV3 when we can see it for free in a second on YouTube?
Yeah.
The only thing that pisses me off about the established media jumping on to YouTube is that it's pushing out the underground media, which I rely a lot on giving me the truth. I don't watch state-funded news programs, Simon and Carl. I refuse to. I haven't watched them for years because
that's interesting.
Like
you
Donald
feed
Trump
crap.
says, fake news, right? Fake news.
Well, yeah. We're not getting news. We're getting an interpretation of how you should be thinking. But that's not the nature of this program, because that's going to lead into politics. And
we have the BBC.
Bastion
of.
Once upon a time, we did have impartiality. Well, as much as you could get in impartiality with the news. We were given what was happening overseas, Simon, presented to us. Yeah. We didn't necessarily get a presenter who was telling us how to think, which seems to be the main thing these days.
I know what you mean. Certainly, that's a hangover from a kind of American news, isn't it? Fox News and those things where seem to have overtly taken sides, if you like, as opposed to not.
Well, in America, when I was over there, you had Fox News, which appealed to the conservative right base, and you had CNN, which appealed to the younger audience and more of the Californian liberal base. In New Zealand, because I'm a bit out of the loop because I was gone for so long, was TV1 conservative and TV3 was liberal? Is that right?
It's So TV3 was the new kid on the block, so they were the one that was trying to give a left kind of youthful presentation of a news subject, as opposed to Channel 1, which was giving the facts. Not articulating what the news story is. So you could go away and make your own mind up. For example, if there was a situation that was happening in Israel around anything, you could go, if you were left or right of that view, you could go away and make your own mind up and have some fact to back up your opinion. But on Channel 3, you got a left view of it, and you were told that this is the view.
TV3 basically modelled a lot of those late night talk shows and CNN and stuff. Did they, or?
Yes.
But anyway, we don't want to talk
week,
about
Jack. Clapton versus Hendrick. Fight off.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That TV channel disappears due to lack of interest. Yes. Because it's been replaced by.
Getting off topic, so rounding it out. so just a sign of the times. Once again, people are getting their news from or music from whoever's most accessible.
Sure.
Instant.
I see the link. I see what you're trying to do. Yeah, you're right. Sign of the times. Things change. Yeah. And in a kind of little way, what we do once a week contributes to putting the music that we
maybe
like.
It could be a good thing. Maybe we could get some younger guys thinking, well, who's this John Mayer guy? Okay, he's okay. Talks about Stereo Vaughan. Oh, wow, Stevie's cool. Who does Stevie talk about? Hendrix. Or Hendrix is cool. Who does Hendrix talk about? Muddy Waters. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, making those historical lines so you can feel the line through the history of popular music and stuff like that. Yeah. Did you see?
Because I've seen some Hendrix clips, and it's like, "Hi everybody, I'm 12 years old, and this
is amazing." Nice one, Arvin.
So Arvin backs Hendrix all the way from the United Church of Canada. So yeah. I'm going to join your church, Arvin.
Yeah. Arvin, that's cheating. Hendrix wasn't Canadian.
No Andrew Scheer or Trudeau chat here, please. Thank you.
Yes. Stop that now.
It's in the Bible.
Andrew's mentioned the B word. Now we're in trouble.
No, it's very interesting. And a lot of these guys in the 60s were majority left leaning, but after a while they would just, it was music first, really. At the end of the day, music first.
Yeah. It was libertarian, was it not? Not kind of left leaning because of liberty, but that freedom and liberty stuff, which can be taken by both sides, really, can't it? It's not necessarily one or the other. I mean, those kind of the right have a lot of freedom and libertarianism. The National Rifle Association is all about the liberty, the freedom of people to carry arms. So I think it's that those things should be taken by both sides, and they're not necessarily.
And country and western and gospel, it was very much right leaning and very conservative. So it was all hand in hand, really.
Yes, completely. Yeah. So, ostensibly, but Casey Kasim's top 40 Bible. Remember him? Yes.
Yeah.
Top 40. Yeah. God, even I remember that, Jack. That's worrying.
We used to get that, and that was spread over about 4 hours on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think they used to have a TV cut down. We must have had a cut down version. I don't remember being 4 hours, maybe an hour or something. American top 20 kind of thing. He did. Maybe that's what he did. Cut it down to an hour and only did the top 20.
Hey, it's good catching up with you guys. I'm just mindful of the time. We've been on air for 2 hours
in the UK. Yes, yes. I got in at 4. I got in at 1 o'clock. Hooray! I had 4 hours sleep.
So, what does Mike Bloomfield mean to us? I think he means innovation. He means a blues guitar virtuoso, a rock guitar player, or someone who wasn't confined to 12-bar blues, so exploring, breaking, jumping fences, breaking the mold,
just another, and I mean this nicely, not just another, but another authentic musician who was in search of real American music. And that's the legacy for me. Someone that wasn't seeking commercial fame. He was just interested
followed his muse. That's the important thing. Is he followed his muse, not hooking himself up to the commercial thing. If it happened, it happened. If it didn't,
he could have quite easily flown to New York and said, "Hey, give me the latest commercial guy, and I'll add some licks to a song." He wasn't all about that.
No. All about expanding the way that he played, what he played, how he played. And I think that's that's in keeping with the innovation and the experimentation of the late 60s, really. When he started, and he one of the major people of doing that stuff, and the major influences on his contemporaries, and to people coming up a bit behind him. I think it's and
Yeah.
if you play on stuff like a Rolling Stone, then you're a top man.
And once again, just like a Jimmy Page, just like a Keith Richards, just like a who's the other guy? It escapes me. We can't lock him down to a Tele or a Gibson. There's Paul. He loved both. Yeah. He loved both guitars, didn't he? Probably towards the end, though, he's probably a Les Paul guy. I think,
yeah, he did. He kind of went over to the from the Tele to the Les Paul.
Yeah.
And I think that's just that's like most guitars, isn't it? Guitars kind of sound chasing, and you think, oh look, it's got a bit of a thicker sound. Yeah.
All right, guys, I got to go.
Andrew's got to go and buy dinner for his family.
Macaroni and cheese.
Yeah.
Macaroni cheese, not for breakfast. What am I thinking?
What are you going to have for breakfast, Simon?
I don't know. Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I'm going to say goodbye to people in the chat. Porridge?
So,
not on a Sunday.
But we're not going to be on next week.
week.
We're going to be in 2 weeks. Guys in the chat, if you want to, and Sonia, if you want to check us out, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah. Andrew's taking a week off to go to the beach. Very nice. Very West Coast. So, if we say thanks to Arvin for dropping by. Sonia, thanks for your contributions, guys. Soda, he popped in as well earlier on. And so I'm just running down the chat so I don't miss it. Guitar Hack, he dropped by to say hi, which is very nice. Sonia's Arvin. We got Jack Daniels as well. Thanks, Jack, for dropping by and contributing. Very cool. I think that's everybody. Yeah. So thanks, guys, for that. And thank you, Andrew and Carl. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yep, to be continued.
Have a lovely time at the beach.
See you guys.